about 10 billion has been paid to SoundExchange. Royalties have been piecemealed to this fund that cannot be accessed. When I say this is so stupid, are they serious? We kept going down the rabbit hole because I want to understand this. I'm asking the questions, and so I did the thing. This is so stupid. And are they serious? They've been collecting your music royalties for years, and you're very unlikely to ever see any of it. And I just kind of stumbled across this today. Sometimes I just go down the rabbit hole so far, I end up on some music platform that I would have never expected to be part of this music royalty collection problem. If you guys remember, we wrote a letter to the Copyright Office and we also sent it to Congress, okay? So Congress basically was like, hey, we want to know about this music royalty thing, and we want to understand and have transparency. And so in our letter that we wrote, right, as the music business community here on Top Music Attorney, we summarized, we're like, hey, PROs, which are performance rights organizations, if you're in the US, it's BMI, ASCAP, CSAC, and there's actually 3 others. It will be different in your country. But anyway, we're like, hey, PROs are not the only companies that collect and pay royalties. And in fact, there are different types of royalties. So anyway, we drew out the music distributor problem, which is not what we're talking about today. And we go, there's more to be concerned about. And then here's the thing. Today, there was an update. And I was reading through because the different PROs also wrote letters to the Copyright Office, and they're going to try to get this information back to Congress. And this is where I started to just kind of get off track. Well, for example, I'm reading BMI's response letter and ASCAP's response letter. And they're basically saying, hey, in regards to like, do we need more government oversight? No, we don't. Now, I'm not surprised they took this position, right? But they go essentially, yes, there's 6 of us in the United States, and yes, there's only 1 for other countries, but it's actually a good thing. And it's because it's going to drive competition, and this is going to result in really good licensing and like all this stuff. So they make their best argument. And that got me thinking, because I remember for all the clients that I serve, when we go to collect royalties for someone, let's say, who hasn't set up their BMI account just yet, when you go and actually register your account, your ability to collect your royalties, right, for your public performance, meaning if your music was played in a restaurant, in a nightclub, wherever, starts after you become a member. And I go, that's interesting, because compared to SoundExchange, which collects a different type of royalty. So for you to collect all your money, so important because you're entitled to collect all your money. With SoundExchange, if you go and you register an account today, let's say you've never heard of SoundExchange and you're going to learn about it today, right? And you go register an account, there actually will be royalties waiting for you. And I go, well, that's interesting. It must be because SoundExchange is the only type of entity that collects this type of streaming revenue. And it's for non-interactive streaming services like Sirius XM, Pandora, iHeartRadio. So it's kind of like digital radio. So why is it that SoundExchange is collecting everything and has money, but it's not the same for PROs? And the answer is because they're not going to collect on your behalf until you register. If you're needing legal help, feel free to reach out to Delgado Entertainment Law, which is my firm. We offer free case evaluations with our case managers. So just meaning you don't have to make any kind of commitment. We'll just see how we can help you. Feel free to call us. You can text, you can email. We look forward to hearing from you. As I kind of started to go down the rabbit hole, I'm reading the terms of service. Okay, so I'm looking at the contracts for BMI and ASCAP. I'm looking at SoundExchange, and I go, for the royalties that are paid to SoundExchange, are we all collecting 100%? Because I'm an artist too, right? I'm an independent. And I go, well, no, I know this to be the case because the way SoundExchange does this is they divvy it up. And this is where you gotta pay real close attention. So if you're an independent artist, and let's say you have one song and you register your one song on SoundExchange to make sure you're collecting these digital streaming royalties, the way that SoundExchange automatically divvies this up is that they say for of 100%, 50% is going to go to the copyright owner, which is still you, right? Because you're the 100% owner here. 45% is paid to the featured artist, right? So whoever performed on the song. Again, this is still you. So now we're at 95%, but there's 5%. There's 5% that is paid to AFM / SAG-AFTRA. So AFM is the American Federation of Musicians. Now, if you guys remember, this is one of, well, really, I mean, I don't even know any others. There probably are. One of the very few music unions. And if you guys remember, when we first kind of took up this cause with music distributors and what was happening, a big part of the conversation had been, well, there's no real music union. And this came up. So AFM, and I'm like, well, it just sucks because AFM does not represent non-musicians, right? So like if we talk about songwriters, DJs, music producers, right? It's musicians. And so that's where we kind of thought about this, and then that's where the conversation ended. So I go, 5% is paid to AFM. And more specifically, it's paid to AFM SAG-AFTRA fund. And this, all of a sudden, I'm on this whole other track immediately, because I go, as it relates to our royalties, if you're telling me that 5% has been paid to this fund, what happens with that money? This is where it gets real interesting. If you like where we're going with this, please give this a big thumbs up. And actually, I forgot to say this at the beginning, which is we talk so much about making sure that you make your money. And I have a free PDF. It's 35 ways to make money using your music, doing all the good stuff. Please download that, get it right away. All right, so let's keep going. So I did a little digging. SoundExchange was formed in 2003, and it was originally established by the RIAA, and then it became independent and actually became like this nonprofit. So this fund exists, and I'm like, well, let's talk about like, what does that mean? How much money is that? Because it's been reported that about 10 billion has been paid to SoundExchange. So remember, if funds are flowing through SoundExchange, and now we have this little math equation of 5% has been going to this fund, and I go, well, 5% of 10 billion is roughly $500 million over the course of 22 years. And so I go, what I do know for a fact is that when there's money that goes to some kind of fund, if you don't know about it, typically that money sits there. And I go, this is interesting. So I went into my SoundExchange account, and I want to show you this, because if you don't have an account with SoundExchange right now, like this is like just basic stuff. Like you need to have your account set up, because this is a type of royalty that you don't get anywhere else. And then like I was saying, the good news is that if you go and you set up an account, there should be royalties waiting for you, because this is an entity that has just been collecting royalties, and then it pays once you actually gain access. But in any case, assuming you do and you check in on your account, you'll have 2 statements, right? So 2 PDFs for any pay period. All right, so here's an example. This is from my account, so I just redacted some of the stuff. So this is how it should look for you. And you'll have 2 statements. Do you see here on the top right, it goes, this says featured artist. Okay, so this is statement number 1. And it's just basic stuff, right? The pay period, how much did you make, that kind of thing. And then there's going to be a second statement for the same pay period. And this one says rights owner. The reason it says this, again, is because this is how your money is divvied up. So we'll show 2 different amounts. This is for the ownership of the song, the master, and this is for the performer side. So AKA, this is what I'm talking about. SoundExchange is divvying up how the money is treated. And I go, well, how does this work? Because as an independent artist, I'm like, well, I own 100% of my music, right? So it's easy math. But how does this work if you're signed with a record label? Because typically, the record label is going to go and actually collect all of the streaming royalties, and then they pay you whatever your deal is. What I do know is that there's this thing called a letter of direction. So the way that it works is that SoundExchange is going to pay that performer amount, that 45%, to the, let's say, singer on the track, no matter what, right? No matter what your deal says. But what labels do is they get you to sign a letter of direction that they send to SoundExchange. They go, hey, that 45% that you're going to pay Tina, actually pay it to us. And so then I go, okay, well, I know that to be the case. I've lawyered for a long time. And so I go, can't we do that for the 5%? Because I go, I don't know, like, let's think about this. If you've made $10,000 over 10 years of being a musician, and a lot of you have been doing this for a long time, and now that 5% of your money has been getting sent to this fund. So 10,000, it's like $500. Do you care about $500? Of course you do. But obviously we're talking about a lot bigger numbers. And I bet the far majority of you didn't know that this was happening. So anyway, I go, could we do just a letter of direction to be like, look, for my song, where I'm 100% owner, I'm going to give you a letter of direction saying, don't pay it to this fund. I want you to pay it to me. And so here's the thing. We kept going down the rabbit hole because I want to understand this. I'm asking the questions. And so I did the thing. So I went to their website for this fund. Take a look. On the first page, you'll see that there's this little search function. Okay, so it shows this. And it's like, hey, just put in your name. And you can search basically to see if you have unclaimed royalties. So I go, okay, well, I don't know. Maybe people just don't know about this. And so I can go collect my 5% from this platform. But here's how it works. So I didn't come up. My legal name didn't come up. My artist name didn't come up. And so it looks like the musicians' names have to actually be given to this fund by third-party platforms, meaning broadcast logs, cue sheets, metadata from radio stations, digital services. And so I go, If I just have put my music on streaming platforms or sold my CDs or whatever, and so my name wasn't on a cue sheet for some TV show, that means I wouldn't be in the system. That means I literally have no way to access this. But the most important thing here, go back to, remember what I said. This is not set up for everyone who made music. This is set up for musicians. And then also remember I said SAG-AFTRA, so that's like a union for actors and that kind of thing. So it's basically set up for musicians and background singers. So automatically I'm excluded. Well, I'm a musician, but I go, I want to collect the piano. I played the piano on my song, right? But the point just being, if you are a producer, if you're a DJ, if you're a songwriter, if you don't fall within this category, you're telling me they've already taken 5% of all your royalties. And actually, there's no way for you to get this or to qualify. And even if you do, because you're like, oh, I'm a musician, I'm gonna go and see if I can claim my stuff. What I'm saying is that I literally went and tried this. I emailed them, and oh yeah, by the way, about an hour before I'm doing this video, they responded. So I took a look at their online access agreement, nothing too crazy there. I even downloaded the whole thing. I went through it. So this is the, hey, if you want to be a member, you have to agree to this. So I did, right? I'm going to the next thing and it goes, okay, so now we need to decide, are you looking to claim your royalties or are there recordings that have been released? We want to basically register you. And it would not let me go beyond this because in order to get an account, I have to claim the name in this little search, right? The search that I did at the very beginning of this, which yet again, there is no artist, right? Miss Crystal, using my legal name, I don't exist because there hasn't been some kind of cue sheet, log, or something with my name ever given to this fund. So type a little email. Maybe I'm just doing it wrong. So here's my little email entitled Independent Artist Account Registration. Dear AFM/SAG-AFTRA Fund, I'm an independent artist. I've not previously been paid by the fund, but I've performed on my own commercially released recordings, right? So like AKA, I have performed as a musician in that I made my whole thing, but I played the piano, I played cello, you know what I'm saying? Like I did some things. So I performed on the recordings. I would like to register and provide additional session info so I can be reviewed for eligibility. Can you confirm the best way to submit this? Thanks in advance for the help. And they in fact did respond. This was the response. And you see obviously their email up here. It's right for the fund. Hello, Miss Crystal. I will say that's very nice. I like being addressed by as Miss Crystal, so thank you for that. Hello, Miss Crystal. Thanks for contacting us. We don't register songs or participants at the fund. We also don't pay featured artists, and we know that's the case, right? Because SoundExchange already delegates, divvies up a portion of the royalties to the featured artist, which in this case is me. We don't pay the featured artists. Our fund primarily pays non-featured session musicians and background vocalists. Please see a brief description of the fund, and it goes on just to kind of explain that the sound recording collects royalties. So it's all the stuff that we've been talking about. And I thought this was interesting. She said, we typically pay just the top 75,000 song titles, and that is across the board from the top songs worldwide, and then went on to talk about residuals. Okay, bottom line, I can't get access to these royalties. You cannot get access to these royalties. Now, can anybody get access to these royalties? Yes, of course, right? So it's, you need to, well, have someone who submitted some kind of broadcast log, cue sheet, metadata from radio stations, digital services. You have to also be a non-performing, meaning you weren't like the singer on the song, a non-performing musician or background vocalist. So as long as you satisfy all this stuff, you can get access to this fund. So what does this mean? This means that if we're talking about, you know, I said 500 million, 100 million, 50 million, I don't care what it is. This means that everyone's royalties have been piecemealed at a percentage of 5% to this fund that is sitting there that cannot truly be accessed, and even beyond that is only accessible by a very small group of what makes up the music business and is by far comprised of independent musicians. I was nothing short of just floored. And so when I say this is so stupid, are they serious? Because you go back to, right, like, why was this set up and who thought this was a good idea and what is happening here? Well, again, this is a nonprofit and this actually is put together by the government. So let me go back to these statements, right? So take a peek at your own, right? These are mine at the very bottom. Look at this little disclaimer that they have. SoundExchange is a nonprofit performance rights organization that collects statutory royalties from satellite and internet radio, cable radio, and similar services. The Copyright Royalty Board, right, so like the Copyright Office, not quite, but Copyright Royalty Board, which is appointed by the U.S. Library of Congress, has entrusted SoundExchange as the sole entity in the U.S. to collect and distribute these digital performance royalties on behalf of featured and non-featured recording artists, masters, owners, and independent artists who own their own master recordings. SoundExchange distributes royalties to the public performance of sound recordings pursuant to 17 USC 114. So like AKA the government made this law. Okay, so that's what they're saying. SoundExchange pays royalties directly to payees according to splits set under federal law as follows. And this is what I said. 50% to the copyright owner, 45% to the featured artist, right? So the performer on the song, 5% to the AFM and AFTRA, right? So that's SAG-AFTRA. They updated their name and merged. Intellectual Property Rights Fund for distribution to non-featured musicians and vocalists. So there's a lot of money that is being held in trust right now that you're never going to get access to. We could say, well, the government thought it was doing a good thing by doing it this way, but I'll start with, did you know? Now you do. And what do you think? I'll see you guys on the next one. I'm top music attorney, Miss Crystal.